Welcome, everybody, to our repeat session of Session 1 of our webinar series for digital growth strategies to accelerate digital performance in 2020. This is the second time we're doing this, and we appreciate if any of you came back for more punishment from yesterday. Welcome back. For those who couldn't make it yesterday, we're glad you can make it this time around. And for those who are new, well, welcome. We're happy to have you. My name is Eric Eisen from SoCast, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Again, this is Session 1, and we will be doing this again next week with a bunch of new strategies. We'd like to wish everybody we're based out of Toronto, Canada, but anybody who is our friends, partners, or colleagues from the U.S., we wish you a very happy belated Thanksgiving and hope that your turkey hangover has subsided, and as well as any other hangovers that may have persisted. Hopefully you're all awake today. I have a ton of great information to share with you, and I want to get started right away. So without further ado, let's get into some housekeeping. This is the repeat session today, so there won't be one tomorrow at 2:30. So please ignore the first bullet point. But the other most important point to take away is that we have broken up this session because we have so much good information into two sessions. And session 2 will be held next week. There are two options to attend, and they will be held Tuesday, December 10th at 1:30 p.m. CST or Thursday, December 12th at 2 p.m. CST. We'll be sure to send out a meeting invite, an invite to all of you following this, but definitely register for those second session. It will be different than the one you have today. And we'll be generally covering at a high level a few topics. So we'll be covering 4 to 5 topics in each session around digital infrastructure, digital content, and digital revenue. A few notes, please feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar. I believe in the GoToWebinar sidebar, there is a means. We do have my colleague Shay on hand to address any questions you may have in real time. At the same time, if we're unable to answer your questions, don't take a personal offense. We will definitely get back to you as soon as we can. Give us about, around 24 hours, and then you can call and yell at us if we don't get back to you about your question. To address a few proactive questions, we will be able to share this presentation with all of you following the webinar. We'll probably get that out tomorrow, and a recording will be available. However, we will not be sending the recording out until we complete the second session next week. So you can all expect to receive a full-fledged Session 1 and Session 2 recording sometime after the session next Thursday, which we hope you will all share with your friends. Another housekeeping note, please don't hesitate to get social with us. We would love for you to tag us on Twitter at SoCast. That's at SoCast. And we always love the hashtag digital dollars. So without further ado, let's get started. I did want to make one other point. It is cold and flu season up here, and I am a little more nasal than usual, so I'm sorry about that. Hopefully none of you are offended by my already nasal voice and more so nasal voice, but I will be sipping water throughout just to make sure I'm not coughing in your faces while we talk. So thanks for bearing with me and listening to my gripe. So we're going to be covering 4 strategies today. And the 4 strategies are going to be get focused on digital. We're obviously going to get into great detail on all of these, but we really feel like 2020 is a big year for you and your whole organization to get focused on digital. And we have a framework that you can use to ensure everyone across departments, across the entire organization has some say and input, as well as some accountability for contributing to digital. One of the strategies we recommend, and we'll tell you why and how, is to refresh your brands and specifically your websites. We have some great ideas and some low-hanging fruit to start with to get that going, and some good reason why. We have some great creative ideas for content that you and your content teams can work on in 2020. And last but not least, we will have some suggestions as to how you can ramp up your digital sales in 2020. Again, we will cover a lot more ideas next week as well, but these are the 4 strategies we'll be focusing on today. So the first one is we want to help you get focused on digital in 2020. Let's get right into it. We're at a time in radio's sort of evolution where radio has to stop thinking of itself as just a audio content producer. It is really important that everybody starts embracing digital as a great means to connect with your audience through various channels above and beyond your traditional means with great content and keep them coming back, connecting with them in various channels, and making sure that you are also able to work with your advertisers to provide digital solutions. Really, radio and digital are a perfect pairing. They go hand in hand and are a perfect match for each other. So what do broadcasters that have seen success with digital have in common? Well, from our perspective, they've built a foundation using our 4P framework. Whether they know it or not, it is very important that you sort of rally around these four. This will cover off a holistic sort of viewpoint to see how you are doing within your digital framework. So the first one is obviously, do you have the people and the teams and the human resources in place to ensure digital success? Do you have the tools and platforms needed to make sure that you can publish content and interact with your audience and generate engagement in a meaningful way? Are your processes and policies in place that make it easy for content producers and sales team alike to publish that content and publish digital ads, as well as make sure that you're doing this with legality, with keeping in mind all of the sort of privacy rules that come with digital? Let's look at people at first. So we asked the question, do you have the expertise and resources to drive digital success? And here's a little bit of a checklist that you can start with and start working with your teams on. Buy-in on the importance of digital. Do you really have a group of people that have really bought in digital, or do you still have some laggards who have been around for a long period of time who are really still convinced that you are only a radio broadcaster? Again, it's not that isn't your first and foremost and most important job and role, but we really think for the organizations that are going to thrive in 2020 and beyond, that digital needs to be embraced. If you have some laggards on your team, what can you do to get them up to speed to make sure that they are starting to look at digital as an opportunity for both engagement and revenue? Are you training both your currently sophisticated digital people on your team and those laggards with regular training focusing around digital? And this goes from everything from content production all the way through sales. And are those people getting more and more confident in digital execution? Do they have the how-to and knowledge to publish content, understand what good quality content is? Do they have the ability to drive change? This really comes from a leadership perspective. Are you really encouraging your teams to stand up and speak their mind when it comes to sharing good ideas or testing different things when it comes to digital? Right now, it is a little bit less so, but a little bit still of a wild, wild west out there. And some of your best ideas may come from your youngest, most inexperienced, some of your most inexperienced employees, your DJs, but making sure that there's a means that these people have an outlet to share those ideas and execute is very, very critical. And lastly, we're going to touch on this a number of times throughout today's webinar, is you need to have key performance indicators, metrics, KPIs to measure digital success and ensure that there is a level of accountability across your organization and across the people within your organization to make sure that everybody has something to strive for and that you have objectives and goals to shoot for both individually and as an organization. In a few moments throughout the presentation, I'll be sharing some key performance indicators, or KPIs as I refer to them, that you can start with as a good starting benchmark. Another very important item when evaluating your potential success with digital is to make sure that you have the tools and platform needed to succeed. There are so many options out there and there are so many ways to do it. There are so many suppliers out there. But one of the things we want to make sure is that you have the right digital toolkit to manage all of your web, social, your mobile apps, now your Alexa voice skills, all of your advertising, both programmatic and owned and operated. Do you have a system that integrates as many of these as possible? Because integration, like SoCast offers, is a critical thing. If you have a lot of friction and your team has to log into many different applications, platforms, or tools, there's likely going to be a reduction in workflow just because it's not very efficient and time saving. The less friction that you can create with integration between your systems is going to make for much easier content publication and ad distribution and trafficking. That is a very important thing to make sure that if you have multiple platforms or solutions that you're using, do they talk to each other, or is there a better integrated solution that you can go with? Is it easy to publish content, and do you have control over your brands with your platform, or do you require a third party to make all of those changes for you? Certainly, there are technologies out there like SoCast that make it very easy with drag and drop and click no code functionality that you no longer require coding skills or necessarily even have people on your teams with a high level of coding experience or heavy technical experience. You also want to make sure that two items, that your platform is flexible to innovation with so many trends and changes, and again, having a little bit of Wild West feeling out there in digital. You want to make sure that your platform and your platform provider are innovative, are staying ahead of the curve with trends and new technologies, and you want to make sure that that platform is stable and regularly updated and meets all of the security and hosting standards that are out there today. When it comes to process, you want to ensure that digital is really top of mind and part of the station's daily workflow. So it's important that you have mechanisms to plan on an ongoing basis across all departments, and that there are easy workflows that are documented to create and publish new content. You want to make sure that your sales team is not bogged down by cumbersome ad and sponsorship implementation into the digital world, and you want to make sure that that process is well defined and documented with our next step over the policy. You want to make sure that you're posting to your web and social daily to engage your audience, whether it's unique and original content, which is the way we highly recommend, or taking in content from other content providers, but making sure that you're constantly updating your digital properties with fresh web and social content daily. And lastly, again, we're going to keep harping on making sure you have success metrics to evaluate your success against, and making sure that those are regularly reviewed internally. You also want to make sure that digital is really codified into all your strategies and procedures across your stations and organizations. So you want to make sure that from a policy perspective that digital is part of performance reviews and as much as possible as compensation. You want to make sure that any inbound requests and complaints from both listeners and advertisers that come through digital, it's a great mechanism and a great tool to make sure you're able to respond to those very, very quickly. You should make sure that your technology and that your policies address all privacy concerns when it comes to digital, and all of your database management and things like that. You want to make sure you have a point person on there to make sure, and a lead to manage all of that listener data. It's always a great idea to have a formalized social media policy so your publishers, your authors know exactly what to produce, what is against the rules to avoid any infringement. You want to make sure that within that formalized social media policy that your content producers are not just taking unauthorized images from Google, that they have a Creative Commons, or they understand where a centralized image library is of rights-free or approved images, so you avoid unlawful use of those images. And that, of course, also goes into the last point, legal risk mitigation protocols, to make sure that everybody understands where those gaps can happen and how to avoid them. So it is essential in today's day and age to make digital a focus. And a great idea to start with, one of the low-hanging fruit, is to start a digital steering committee that meets regularly. Really, the frequency is really up to you and the availability and the distribution of your staff across various markets. But with today's day and age, you can meet on a fairly regular basis. We would recommend a minimum of once a month, but more if you can. Bi-weekly would sort of be ideal, if not weekly. And get people from across the entire organization so you have interdepartmental input, sharing of ideas, and share those metrics. Focus on the 4P framework, which we've just reviewed. And again, at the end of the presentation, I'll give you my email address. We actually have a digital checklist that will help you work through that to help identify your strengths and opportunities coming into 2020. Ensure your team is rewarded for digital, whether it's compensation or just general rewards and acknowledgments. Something digital has to be brought to the forefront of your discussions. So, if you're offering the salesperson of the month a general reward each month or incentive, why not incent them to sell more digital? Why not for your digital managers and digital content producers, spiff them on increasing your website traffic or unique page views or time spent on site? Evaluate your digital ecosystems and tools. Of course, there are so many suppliers. SOCAST can help you make sure it's easy to manage your websites and mobile apps, but there are other suppliers out there. This is not an advertorial for SOCAST, but make sure you have the tools and you have control over your online brand presence. Empower your people to execute digital content. Again, more friction equals less efficiency and less buy-in and less contribution. So people will shy away from what they're scared of or frustrated with. You want to make sure that it is an easy and well-documented process to produce that type of content and get it out online. And lastly, establish digital KPIs and measure them regularly. We've said that. I told you I was going to hit you over the head with that a little bit. And with that said, I do have some great key performance indicators for strong performers that you can put up on your walls and start sharing with your team. Let's get into a few of those now. So your social referrals should account for 40% or more of your website traffic. For those of you unfamiliar with what a social referral is, that is traffic that is directed to your website through clicks from content you post out into social. If you're posting out content to other people's content on your social media and driving traffic back to their website, you are doing yourself no service. You want to make sure that you are driving traffic back to your own and that your website traffic is up around 40% of that website traffic coming in from social. Membership databases and first-party data is critical, and you should always be trying to grow your listener loyalty clubs, your VIP clubs, whatever they may be called within your organization, by up to 20% per year. At this point, mobile should represent more than 50% of your website traffic. Mobile has surpassed very, very strongly all web desktop traffic. Mobile is now the number one source of search and traffic. So I can tell you that the majority of our SOCAST partners are well above 60%. Some of them are as high as 80% of their traffic comes from mobile. Obviously, audiences are enamored with their smartphones and are constantly on them, so you can imagine where this comes from. But if your mobile, if mobile doesn't represent at least 50% of your search, your sites are probably not mobile optimized, the experience is probably poor, and you're probably not doing yourself a service by not having mobile responsive websites. Your website page views should grow by more than 25% this year, and that would be a great goal. This is actually a pretty easy number, and we do have a strategy which we're going to be touching on momentarily with some ideas as to what you can do to increase these page views, but 25% should be a pretty reasonable year-over-year increase to strive for. Digital listening should account for more than 25% of your listing. With so much fragmentation in the audience, the only place for people to listen to your traditional radio stream is in the car. That is still far and away the number one place people listen to FM and AM radio. But with so many other channels like web, through desktop and mobile, as we've discussed, now smart speakers out there available, more and more of your listening should come through digital, and you want to see that number rise so you know your audience is following you beyond just the car. They're following you into the office and putting you on their tablets or laptops or desktops when they're leaving and doing a lot of driving, that they're accessing you through their mobile apps outside of your traditional listening area. This is the power that digital enables for you to have continuity and availability and engagement for your listeners, so you should be taking advantage of it and see this number growing. And from a sales perspective, the number that we're helping our partners achieve is greater than 12% of your total revenue should be coming from digital. This number should be growing year over year and be starting to hit that sort of hockey stick inflection point of really almost starting to hit that exponential growth rate. And certainly there are many opportunities that we'll discuss today and next week on how you can achieve that. So that's strategy number one that we'll hope you'll focus on in 2020. Strategy number two is refresh your website. I wish I could hear all of you. I know I can't. I'm sure there are a ton of ahs. There's nothing like cute puppies to sort of invoke a lot of ahs, but there's some great ones out there. But refreshing your website is also a great idea. Let's talk about it a little bit more. If you haven't updated your website in 2 years or more, I would say it's definitely time. Websites should be definitely updated every 2 to 3 years to ensure that they aren't getting stale and that you are providing your audience with the best user and listener and audience experience that's out there. We know from our experience that a number of our partners have seen exceptional page view growth and exceptional key performance indicator growth when they did refresh their websites. It should range anywhere from a 25% up to 150% depending on the status and the stagnation of your website. It should not only be expected to increase your page views, it should also be expected to increase your sessions, your tune-ins, and your overall engagement measured by your blog article impressions. One of our partners who switched over from an internal house design system or in-house system saw between 50% and 100% page view growth year over year from the time they switched from their in-house system over to the SOCAS system. This would qualify definitely as a website overhaul and refresh as well. So the question that we're all here for and what SOCAS wants to provide you is, where do you start? So number one is a few table stakes-based items that you can't ever forgo in this day and age. With so much worry around data security, it is more essential than ever that you are offering secure websites. And you can always tell your websites are secure by looking at that little gray lock in the top left corner or in the search bar to make sure that this is a connection is secure and that it is encrypted. This will do a number of things for you. Number one, it will give your audience the confidence that their data is secure and that they aren't providing it to an unsecure system. And this is obviously very, very critical. Google will actually is now flagging sites and will increase the sort of magnitude of the flagging in 2020. They will be starting to put up red flags on sites that aren't secure and recommending that people don't enter any privacy or personal data on sites that aren't secure. You can make sure that your sites have SSL certificates or HTTPS to ensure that they are secure. As a standard, SOCAS offers these as part of our monthly licensing fee, and any supplier that you're using should be too. If they're not, please feel free to contact us, but there are many ways to get your site secure. Secondly, make sure your site is mobile responsive. This is for a number of reasons. First and foremost, that Google also gives priority in terms of search engine optimization, SEO, to sites that are mobile responsive. It also ensures that your audience, now as we said, that more than 60 to 70, even 80% of your web traffic is coming from mobile web. You want to make sure that that experience is very critical and very strong. Having a mobile responsive website will ensure that your audience is not having to pinch and zoom in and scroll in at all. That is from a user experience, very, very critical, and just the whole user experience will be, a much better experience for your audience. Third, make sure your website is usable, and I have usable in quotes there because you want to make sure you're doing some usability tests on both your existing site and any new sites that you do refresh. And there are a variety of articles out there online that you can just search for usability tests. But the main goal is to bring in users, whether it's in-house, your family, or most ideally, a listener, to come in and sit down and almost do a focus group with them. And get them to assess your website and the usability and their overall impression of that website for you. Another good idea is to have them compare it to other websites that they like, and moreover, even a local competitor that may be in the market, just to see how much better your site's usability, your site, how much better the usability is. You can really, when people come to your website, you really want to focus on a few things. Common issues that generally come up in usability tests are very vague or confusing language in the navigation bar or main menu. I find a lot of websites, as an example, put on air when they should use DJs or personalities, because it really isn't what's on air. It could say who's on air would be better. Others will have a link for concerts and events, but aren't concerts and events also really the same type of thing? Another common issue is that websites don't always make it clear where the radio station is, what type of programming is on the air, or even what type of artists they'll hear. When somebody tunes into your radio station, of course, they know what city it's in because they're in the same city, but when they come online, they should be able to tell the same thing. Another question you can ask when you're doing a usability test, is when people come to your website, what is it that you actually want them to do? So knowing which calls to action are important, and the placement of those calls to action is a very important thing. So during the usability test, you can ask, if you wanted to listen live, where would you find that? And of course, your listen live should be one of the main reasons people are coming to your website. From our experience, the top 3 reasons people come to a website, radio station's website, is 1, to listen to the stream, 2, to find out what that song was and find out what previously played songs were, and 3, to enter a contest. Behind that would be to find out a DJ's name, to find out where the location of the station is to pick up a prize, and to also find out about any concerts or events. But you definitely want to know which placement of calls to action, the most valuable piece of real estate. Give your call to action buttons, first of all, make them look like a button, make them, very contrasting to the other colors. Make sure that you're using strong verbs like listen here, listen now, enter to win, sign up, get details, and make sure that you are giving them the proper space. And the prime real estate, as I was saying just a minute ago, would be that the natural inclination is to look at the top left of the screen. That is the human being's natural reaction. So if listening live is your primary goal, make sure that that is in the top left. The second area would be the top right, followed by a sidebar on the left side of the screen. So make sure your buttons, your enter, your user club are very prominent within those positions. Another mistake we see very frequently is making sure the advertise option, and it's very clear for any prospective advertisers to find out how they can advertise on your station and to even submit requests. Remember, your business first and foremost is to sell advertising. Why make it difficult and not use your website as a huge promoter of that service to your advertising or prospective advertising partners? Making sure people can find your other channels like your mobile apps and Alexa skills are also critical. So making sure that those are promoted throughout the website. And again, you want to direct that user and listener to make sure that they can find various different components of information. So asking them questions during the usability tests of, please tell me who our morning show DJ is and what time are they on for? Where would you go to enter this contest? You can ask them specific things to find out if there's any friction or difficulty in finding these positions on your website. So a usability test is always a great idea. Remember, users don't love usable websites. They just hate the poorly designed ones. Poor usability is what people judge. So, more low-hanging fruit. Make your navigation easy and clear. Make sure you have clear branding, clear format, and clear location. Your users and audience should be able to tell what format you're playing, where you're located, and what type of artists they'll hear. Your calls to action should be obvious and placed in the most prime real estate and should contrast any other coloring on the website. Make sure that those CTAs are very clear. Make it easy to listen to your Listen Live, join contest or your membership database, and find the most important information that people are going to be after. I cannot express enough how important it is. We had Seth Resler from Jacobs Media on, who helped me co-host a webinar earlier this year, and he said that potentially one of the most obvious mistakes that he sees frequently on radio station websites is they do not make it clear on their advertising options or to connect with the station to advertise. Publish original content and rich media as much as you can. With rich media, we want to have strong imagery. Video is obviously a very hot button topic. Podcasts and even sound clips. So anything more interactive, but even just publishing some unique blogs and content is a great start. And we're going to talk about that more within the next strategy. And lastly, promote your other digital channels, as I said. Make sure that people know where to find your Alexa skills or how to download your mobile apps on both Android and Amazon, or Android and Apple, of course. Those are very critical things. Some KPIs you can keep an eye on after you build your you refresh your website. Bounce rate is to be defined as when people come to a page or to your website and they click the back button within 4 or 5 seconds, that equates to a bounce. Only ideally about 40% of your traffic should bounce within 4 to 5 seconds or from a page in 4 to 5 seconds. So, if you're surpassing 50%, it probably means your content isn't as optimal or the user experience is not as optimal. You should also be measuring people's time on site, and all of this can be done through Google Analytics. If you're having time on site with greater than 180 seconds, you're well above, you're pretty much above the industry standard for web in general. And if people are visiting 3 or more pages on your website, you're doing a good job. Lastly, we believe that at a minimum, you should be able to grow your website by more than 25% in your first year after you go through a website refresh. So hopefully these are helpful metrics to shoot for in 2020. Our third strategy we want to focus on today is get creative with your content. We'll talk about that. So before we get into it, some things that make you go, As I said earlier, it's really important to start embracing the idea that you are an omni-channel content producer. You are no longer traditional audio producers. Of course, that should make up the majority of your job, but the more and more you start to realize that your audience is looking for you in various other channels, especially as the population ages and the younger population has so many more options to choose from, you want to make sure you are producing content across web, mobile, social, smart speakers, and who knows what else is coming down the road. Right now, probably OTT, which is like Apple Television or Roku. Who knows whether one day people will be listening to their radio stations through virtual reality. But today, you definitely want to focus on those channels and make sure you're producing content that is going to resonate with the audience through them. We hear the word influencers very frequently, and I think radio neglects to look at their on-air personalities as local influencers. There is no reason why personalities shouldn't have their own Instagram pages that associate with your website. Of course, within your policies, you want to make sure that they're connected and cohesive, but your personalities can definitely be that influencer from both an advertising perspective and a content delivery perspective. So definitely embrace that you have your own influencers. You don't need Kim Kardashian. You have them right in your own station. When producing content, Google looks at quality, relevance, and uniqueness when it comes to SEO. So keep that in mind, and hopefully in the coming slides, we'll be able to show you how to produce some quality, relevant, and unique content. Don't drive audience away from your site. If you're, again, giving links that click away from your site, what is the point? You're not doing yourself a justice. You're better off not having that type of content. The only 2 places your audience should be going is back to your website or to social. And social media is the most powerful amplifier of your content. So again, utilizing social, whether you're writing a news or a blog story and sharing it out into social, you need to ensure that a link back to your website and that specific article or through your mobile app is a direct link to amplify and promote that content. Push notifications are another great amplifier through your mobile app. So making sure you are sending out relevant and interesting push notifications, even breaking weather or breaking news, to drive people back to your website or mobile app. And it's the good content that will make them stay and always come back, them being your audience. So make sure this year in 2020 you start to focus on what good content is to keep them staying on your sites and digital properties and coming back. Remember, content is your brand. That's what you've always been doing over audio. Let's make sure we extend that philosophy out into our blogs and news stories. And people, when I speak to them and sell SoCast, which has been built on WordPress, which is primarily a great blogging tool, I find that radio broadcasters fear the blog. And what I mean by fear is they think of it as long form, very time consuming, and we don't see it as that at all. We see blogs being very short, shareable, quick to read paragraphs. Sharing a video or a other news story with a 1 or 2 lines is or a viral video, and sharing that is a very easy thing to do with just a couple of notes on your thoughts and maybe even some commentary and enabling some commentary back from the audience. Obviously, people in this day and age have very short attention spans, so they're looking at headlines, they're looking at images for short, snackable audio and video. So keep your content short and sweet, and include real-life data or back up your sources and links as often as possible. When looking for inspiration, and we'll talk a little bit about this more in some subsequent slides, use keyword tools and Twitter to find highly searched and trending topics. Think of the trending shows and the hot shows that you are hearing about or that is going on in your audiences, that your audience is talking about, pop culture and local events, and of course, seasonal topics. Right now, everybody's talking about the holiday season and Christmas season. Obviously, fundraising and holiday events are critical. Christmas markets, all of those are very easy, low-hanging fruit to pick up on when it comes to seasonal topics. Use your content to start conversation, and this will allow you to bridge on-air and digital together. So having a on-air personality mention something and share something during the morning drive or afternoon during one of the day parts, and then actually having some interactivity to follow up those comments online, whether it's on your website or social, perhaps it's publishing a poll, perhaps it's asking a question and having members and audience comment through their mobile apps or on your website to get opinions. Those are very easy things to do and really drive a lot of engagement and traffic. Again, take advantages of your in-house influencers. You have them there. They're great promoters, and they should also be used to bridge that on-air and digital content. And don't forget to spend time promoting your content through social and on air. Again, you should not be pushing out content that click back to other people's website. Promote your own content and drive your own traffic back to your websites. So some simple content ideas, again, just coming back to microblogging content, post small amounts of digital content, text, pictures, links, short videos that are shareable and quick to read. Blog around a theme, whether it's seasonal or proms or back to school or Halloween or tax season, 401k or RSP season. You can do DIY, do it yourself, or best practices when investing in your 401k this season, things to think about. When it comes to people love guides, lists, and listicles, best places to drink, eat, attractions around your local area, hot topics. So think about the shows that are most popular on Netflix or on any of the OTT right now, and give your opinion on them. When there's new hot blockbuster movies starting, let's hear from people about what they like about them. There's obviously sports, elections, award shows. All of those are very simple, easy things to rally around. And of course, blog around your shows. Create a blog that goes, into a topic that was discussed on air. Again, bridging that gap between on air and digital. Very simple to do with something like that. If there was something that really blew up and the phone lines blew up, why not blog about it? You can even talk about, and share in text, a transcript of behind the scenes interviews with guests on your show or artists that may come in if you have that type of on air content. So when it comes to finding great content, again, I said I would share some ideas on where you could source inspiration for those. And again, we feel that creating influencer lists on Twitter, follow bands, follow fans of bands, local personalities or celebrities, and share that content and use what they're saying to get inspiration for your next blog. Other popular sources are RSS feeds. These are free. A lot of these are free. Things like BuzzFeed, Reddit, and Rolling Stone are great sources of pop culture and sort of inane content that you can talk about in social and on your website. And if you look at that link, eBiz MBA, there is about 15 or 20 different websites, including BuzzFeed, that they recommend that you can go to get, pop culture information and entertainment information. And of course, you can always just follow the Weather Channel or Weather Network because they'll provide, things around breaking weather alerts and things like that. Headlines are a really important thing to drive clicks. Most people will look at the headline, but only about 2 out of 10 will actually click on a headline. And this is mostly because headlines aren't that compelling. They've sort of banned the idea of clickbait headlines, but you want to get as close to clickbait as you can while not really making it clickbait. And here I'm providing a very simple headline formula. So you can start with a number or the word how, plus an adjective, a keyword, and a promise. So I've given you some examples there. So you can really do anything: 10 effective ways, 99 simple weight loss tools, how to magically bake delicious cookies, 10 ideas, 10 stocks to invest in 2020 that'll make you a billionaire. Really, you can think of so many different ways, but just using a simple headline formula when you're working with your content producers will help them and provide them with a very simplistic formula. And then you can start to test things and see what works for you. I have some great fresh content ideas for you today that I think everybody should be really rallying around in 2020. So the first one that I want to talk about is the good news is that 91% of teens between 12 and 17 still listen to radio on a very regular basis. It may not be as frequently as we like or for as long as we like, given how much competition there is for their share of ear. But one idea why this is relevant that I have for all of you today is esports. Esports is a billion-dollar industry and growing. It is much more than just a trend. This is something that has been around for a few years now and is garnering huge amount of attention amongst millennials, Gen Z, sorry for my American friends, I went a little Canadian, Gen Z, and Gen Y. These, for those of you who aren't familiar with esports, there are kids out there who just sit around and watch other people actually play Fortnite and other esport video games, any video games from Madden all the way through Fortnite. There's even events probably within your local area that are drawing anywhere from hundreds to literally tens of thousands of people into massive stadiums. This is a massive opportunity and a content option that everybody should be rallying around, whether it's on air, as Beasley Media has with Checkpoint Radio, which is a syndicated show across their network for gamers. You can do blogs, video content, live streaming of these events if you have the ability, or even tapping into Twitch, which is a video social media network that actually is specific for gamers just to watch other gamers play video games. You can do podcasts around this. You can have social media. You can have local esports celebrities. And then from a revenue perspective, you can have sponsorship of both events or of your blogs on your website or your content on your website focused on esports. There's ticket sales. And of course, there's e-commerce for merchandise that you can do. But figuring out a way to tap into this billion-dollar industry to stay connected with those young Gen Z, Gen Y, and millennials is a very critical opportunity in 2020 and a great content idea for the majority of formats. Another thing, some of you in the United States may have heard it's an election year. I know that's not for about a year away. It's coming, I believe, next November, but you are not too early to be planning how you are going to cover the election as it continues once we pass the new year. Obviously, polling is going to get much more, polarizing, if you will. It's going to get a lot more detailed. There's going to be a lot more campaigning. You definitely need to figure out how you on your digital properties are going to cover this all the way up to Election Day and including producing results on Election Day. So, election coverage basics, elections are a great way to drive traffic with election covering. coverage. Build live results page to keep people and readers update. You can start with just sharing some of the general polls around this. You can do blogs, news, and opinions leading up to Election Day. I know, obviously, it is probably a more polarized time in the United States than it ever has been, and you want to make sure you're towing the line a little bit and, not losing listeners because of this. But definitely there is a means, and within your digital steering committees, you should be figuring out how you can do this in a very diplomatic and democratic way. You can have sponsor blogs and election pages and find ways to tie on-air to digital content. You can build polls on your websites and mobile apps that actually aggregate people's opinions, and you can publish these out into social media. You could do podcast and on-demand content around these, and you can utilize push notifications as you get closer to election to highlight the activity around this. You can promote your properties as an election coverage destination leading up to the election day and share updates on social media. So these are just some good things, to discuss within your digital steering committees. Maybe not starting in January, but probably not that far off, right, as this is going to really ramp up, and we do really feel is going to be a significant traffic driver. We had some partners in Canada that during the 2019 federal election here in Canada, their websites received a huge traffic boost based upon their election coverage. Another idea we have for you is, and this is something I will call satellite brands. I don't think that that's an industry term, but it's something we've seen a lot of success with some of our partners this year. And this is identifying targeted segments of your audience and creating digital properties for that specific audience. So a good example is in a lot of the small markets and micro markets that you may be in, local high school sports and college sports or varsity sports is a huge thing. One of our partners out of a small town in Illinois has built a whole website dedicated to sports within the region called I-70 Sports. And the value of this is that it is a specific sports site for their very sports-hungry audience. And it's really designed to build loyalty with that theme type of content. You can take advantage of it by capitalizing on shared content between one of your websites and the I-70 or your local sports site. And you can increase your digital inventory to monetize it as well, because you can have sponsors for these sites as well as for your regular radio station sites and upsell this. And, there's a lot of community engagement that can be done through these type of satellite brands, if you will. You can have recognition of athletes of the week and local athletes and stars and things like that. So it's a great way to get your brands more immersed in the community. All Mom Does was another example of a satellite brand that is built on the SoCast platform. And really what happened was the station identified that they had a very, very high number of young female mothers listening to their station. And as a result, they built a blog and podcast-based site with unique local original content generated by bloggers for that specific audience. In the studio and on their regular websites, they are also able to use some of that content for their benefit to populate those sites. And then again, from an advertisement perspective, it offers endorsement opportunities, and you can have an integration of radio buy plus blog sponsorship so you can make money from that. It also offers you a whole other means of social media and another social media channel to drive people to get brand affinity. Some blog examples that you can use is, again, you can do a lot of native advertising on these blogs. What I mean by that is you can have, a camp be a sponsor and have some mothers review that summer camp in a blog, and it works as almost like a native ad. And while these may not garner hundreds and hundreds or thousands of page views, they are getting a very loyal, dedicated following and readership that will generate some good data and insights for that advertiser. So I'll spare you the low-hanging fruit image, but again, post small amounts of digital content. Make your blog simple. Use listicles, short lists to capture interest. Definitely make sure you have an inviting headline and some great featured images and rich media to accompany your blogs and news stories. Live and local always drive the best results to stay live and local, because that's really what radio's strength is. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have some national commentary like elections and things like that on your websites, but certainly live and local always drive great results. And don't be afraid to try a couple of the creative new options like the satellite brands, election coverage, and the esports opportunities that I suggested here. I hope you'll take some of those away. Our last strategy that we want to talk about today is ramp up your digital sales in 2020. So as you know, digital ad spending has surpassed traditional media, and there is a ton of money out there for your sales teams and your organization to go out there and capture. In fact, we've heard it for years and years that local ad spending on traditional is flat or even down a little bit, and digital is clearly where that growth is. This year, some of the biggest organizations in broadcast reported great earnings, and the majority of them reported that the results and growth came from digital sales. So you, even within small markets and medium-sized markets, should be embracing this. In fact, the CEO of Town Square said it was really a holistic sales approach that integrated both digital and traditional that helped the small and medium market convert digital clients to broadcast and vice versa. So you can no longer really see digital and traditional in two different silos. You should be really bridging the gap and not upselling digital as a secondary option or upselling traditional as that primary option. You should be selling them as a multi-platform integrated campaign, because you as radio broadcasters can uniquely deliver a very impactful advertising campaign to impact the whole buyer's experience. And this is going to drive revenue growth. As I said, we feel here at SoCast, and our experience has been that radio really can impact the entire buyer's journey. With your traditional radio spots, you are driving a ton of awareness and recall. In fact, radio has been proven to drive incremental search for brands with their traditional radio spots. But then with digital, whether it be your own placing ads on your owned and operated websites and mobile apps, or through programmatic options like geo-targeting, targeted display, retargeting, etc., you can actually drive down to the bottom of that buyer's journey and impact the conversion for your ad partners. The overall, the whole experience can be impacted by radio. And if I was a radio salesperson, I would definitely be explaining this to my ad partners, that you as a salesperson can deliver a ad campaign that can impact the whole buyer's journey from creating awareness all the way to purchase. There are three problems though. Right now, radio is lagging behind its media counterparts in offering digital as a solution. Only approximately about 57% of sales leaders are saying that digital is offered as part of their offering. So I would say that that is a very critical opportunity that should increase. 57% is not as high as it should be, and definitely an opportunity. We hear excuses all the time. I'm speaking to radio broadcasters, and I'm still amazed that people say we're radio, and digital is not our business. That's fine. I expect that a lot of those radio operators will still do fine, but I really think that in order to thrive, you really need to embrace that omni-channel experience. We hear all the time that selling digital will distract my sales team. With proper training, proper packaging, and we'll discuss this in a minute, your sales team shouldn't be distracted. Again, this shouldn't be an additional thing. This should be an incremental thing. We really do feel that if ad budgets are going to digital, that your team should be asking for a share of that budget to either offset what isn't being spent by your ad partners or is being pulled out of traditional radio spot buys. You should definitely be offsetting that, and it can certainly be incremental as well by offering digital. My sales team doesn't know how to sell digital. There are so many solutions. The RAB offers great digital sales training. Organizations like ours at SoCast offer great sales training. DMI, there are so many solutions that you can invest in to sell digital that are going to really help your team get up to speed. Your ad partners may not understand digital, but they are looking to you as a solution, and everybody is doing it. Even if they're just box checking today, there is an opportunity for your sales teams to become those digital leaders and explain how it works. And again, I've already touched on the last point that digital sales cannibalizes traditional sales. Again, our experience is not that at all. We believe with that shrinking budgets directed towards traditional, that digital is the antidote to ensure that you are still at least maintaining that share of wallet, if not growing that share of wallet. Some proof behind that is that only 15% of digital advertising spends by local advertisers is actually going to a local media company like radio broadcasters like all of you on this webinar today. The remaining 85% is being spent with big tech companies like Google, Facebook, and others. So there is definitely an opportunity for all of you to go after that share of the pie. And the reality is if you're not selling your advertisers digital solutions, someone else is. Because again, advertisers aren't looking for two different solutions anymore. They're looking for an integrated solution that brings together digital and traditional and are treating them as an integrated unit. In fact, 97% of radio advertisers buy digital advertising with traditional forms of advertising in their marketing campaigns. That was in 2019, and that was up from 85% in 2018. So that should remain the standard as we enter 2020. So how do you break this down for your sales team? Well, we make it, we try to simplify everything a little bit. And we see the first thing is to make sure that your team is prepared, making sure that they have the training, they understand the digital inventory options that are available to them. And again, we can't stress enough how important it is to have goals and track the results. You definitely want to have a media kit that makes it simple to price and package these, to package digital. We recommend a flat rate for your digital inventory because this makes it simple for both the salesperson and advertiser to understand. And create packages that address specific advertisers' needs and develop collateral and specific bundles for different advertisers, different verticals, and sell them on the results that you can generate. As we said, you can impact the entire buyer's journey. Share those details with them. And make sure you're not giving away the goods. Upsell and bundle premium benefits for an additional cost. When it comes to pitching, make sure, again, that you aren't including digital as a secondary option, that it's bundled in as a primary option, and try some new things like doing open houses with all of your advertisers and bringing them into your radio station or into a hotel to promote all of the digital opportunities as well as the traditional opportunities that you can sell them in 2020. There are so many different types of digital inventory from your owned and operated through your web and mobile app that you can sell. There's tons of digital advertising opportunities and services, everything from programmatic like targeted display, geo-targeting, retargeting, plus offering digital services, email, SEO, website development, social media management, video production. Not everybody can do all of these. So start small and think about what you can deliver and start with those and grow from there. The great news is that display inventory has been making a comeback since 2017. In fact, it grew 30% since 2017 to 2019. Native advertising is continuing to grow. And again, those are ads that are like blogs or business reviews for a local advertiser that look almost like a native blog. And I'll show you a couple examples in a moment. And of course, making sure that you have mobile apps and mobile web experiences that can deliver ad solutions so your sales team can go out and sell them, because your advertisers are spending more and more on mobile as the audience is going that direction. So when it comes to empowering your sales staff to sell digital inventory, again, make sure you're setting goals and quotas and demand commitment and accountability to digital sales. Remember, we think you should be hitting greater than 12% by the end of 2020. Make sure that your salespeople are trained and understand not just how to sell digital, but the inventory that's available to them. Prepare discovery questions to assess client needs and budgets, and I'll share some good examples with you in a moment. Compensate your sales rep for digital sales. Again, they're not going to sell if they're not motivated to sell. Cash drives your sales teams, and that's a big motivator. And again, recommend a usage of a flat rate approach for sales as best you can, and meet frequently to assess assess your market and make sure that your costs and pricing are aligned. So discovering your client's need. We take a basic BANT formula for qualifying and determining a client's needs. BANT being assess their budget, assess their needs, and assess their timelines for purchasing it. And you should be asking questions that are generally open-ended and positive and designed to extract information. So using terms like tell me about, or how would you describe, or what do you know about? Do you have any insights on? Those are great ways that are open-ended that will extract information from them. But asking them, what their experience is with digital advertising, because chances are you may have not asked that question and they're probably just spending money on Google AdWords and don't have the first clue what they're getting out of it. So make sure that you're asking these type of questions. What times of years do they really want to ramp up sales, or are they struggling with, or they're doing their ad spends on? Getting into the details and asking the hard questions is very critical, and to establish a good needs analysis. And don't forget to supercharge your ad sales by combining digital and traditional together. So you can do local business profiles and newsletter sponsorships combined with your traditional ad spends, display inventory, upsell display inventory, and programmatic campaigns. And get your personalities, those influenced, to do social testimonials. There are so many ways that you can supercharge your ad sales and upsell so many simple options. Here's a great example of doing, having a local kid center or urgent care center sponsor back to school tips around back to school time, and doing like a best tips type thing that is native to the website. You can do business profiles on local banks around 401k season or investments, etc. And then lastly, make sure you have the ability in 2020 to sell beyond radio. Programmatic is really key. This is the technology that allows you to sell campaigns and drive impressions for your advertisers away from your owned and operated inventory, and make sure that their ads get seen across the World Wide Web to their targeted client or buyer. Things like geo-targeting, targeted display retargeting, contextual targeting, which allows for an advertiser to sell based upon an event, whether it's a weather event or a concert. So, there's a concert coming or it's going to snow. You can have a local tire shop upsell winter tires and have their ads be more prominent when there is an expected snowfall. And conquesting. These are the type of ads that when somebody is searching, after they search a competitor, that their ads will come up. So think about a local car dealership. Maybe it's an Asian car dealership as an example, that, it's a Toyota dealership. So anybody who has searched Honda, you can actually have Toyota ads displayed in place of, for those type of buyers. We've all been through that targeted display experience where through your owned and operated inventory, there's an ad and then that is engaged with, and then every other website you go to, you're seeing banners and box ads, whatever website you're going to. So this is just an example of that. And it's important to pick the right programmatic ad partner, because everybody knows a guy. But I'm giving you here some checklist of 8 items to select when selecting a programmatic partner. So you obviously want to assess their pricing structure. Is it a revenue share, or is it a flat fee? Do they have any minimum monthly retainers or a percent, or are they just taking a rev share from you? Can you provide the high quality multi-platform inventory, that are available? And do you have the ability to leverage first and second and third party data to more tactically target the advertiser's audience? Do they offer great technical support and sales enablement and training? Because if they're just going to throw you to the wolves, your team is likely to not be successful with this. And lastly, I can't stress enough that they have to have safety measures and anti-fraud tools to tackle fraud. That is a huge thing. There are so many bots and click farms out there that are providing artificial information and artificial results for the advertiser. So there is a little bit of distrust. You want to make sure you question whether your programmatic partner has a lot of safety measures and anti-fraud implementation into their programmatic platforms. Certainly for anybody who has questions about this, SoCast is more than happy to help. we're wrapping up here, and these were really the 4 takeaways we hope you will implement in 2020. One, get focused with the 4 Ps. Think about refreshing your website, especially if it's time in over 2 years. Get creative with your content. I hope we shared a few ideas today that will really help you ramp that up. And next, definitely invest in digital sales, because there is a ton of share of wallet out there that your sales team can be going after when it comes to digital to complement your traditional sales and even offset maybe some of the budget losses. I want to thank you all for attending and spending over an hour of time with us today. Again, if you want a free digital assessment for 2020 of your digital properties, myself and my colleague Shay, Eric at socast@digital.com or Shay at socastdigital.com will be happy to do a no strings attached free digital assessment for you, so please email us. We also, if any of our clients are on the call, if you want to find out what's coming in 2020, please connect with Steve, our client success guru, at steve@socastdigital.com to learn more about what's coming. Email me for a digital checklist and content cheat sheet. These are great tools to share with your team, and I can send them your way via email. They're great things to help you look at your organization, to assess where you're at, and to ensure that your content is going to be impactful and engaging to your audience. And last but not least, next week, please join us for session 2, either Tuesday, December 10th at 1:30 p.m. CST or Thursday, December 12th at 2 p.m. CST. We'd love to have you back. We're going to have 4 or 5 more great strategies, and we really hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks again, everybody, for your time. Don't hesitate to visit us at socastdigital.com, and we'll look forward to speaking to you all next week.